Hello, this is Sam Simon, also known as Dementia Man, with my video blog for the week of March 17th. I'm going to call this blog Who's Sam Simon? That's how I start the play, actually. Sort of goes, the first part, the opening goes like this. I'll give you a little bit of the start, and then I'm going to come back with you'll see interesting things that triggered me to focus on this week. So the play starts with I come out from behind the curtain. I go, "Oh, this is how it ends. Oh, well, I'm not going to die. I'm just going to go away, transform, become someone else. Alzheimer's disease. It's what I got. There is no doubt, and there is no cure. It's been a remarkable journey. Who would have imagined this kid from El Paso, Texas? My dad was a traveling salesman. Think Willie Loman. Eventually became a manager of a filling stations. That's what we called gas stations way back then. My mom was a flamenco dancer as a young lady. She never finished high school. She eventually became a speed typist and a self-taught bookkeeper working in a small business in El Paso. Me, I think I was born a troublemaker. Okay, I'm stopping. You've heard about troublemaking before, though I'm going to tell you more about me in a minute. I tell you what triggered this idea of introducing myself. So let me just tell a little bit more about me. I was born on July 18th, 1945. So that means on July 18th, I'm sorry, 2025, I'm going to turn 80 years old. Yeah, do I look 79 and three quarters? Huh, I don't think so. I'm doing pretty well, except for that one little thing at the top of the screen called dementia. But it all comes together a little bit. We look at our histories, we look at our genetics. Now, you may have heard or know the fact that I have a genetic trait or risk factor, really. I have a gene. The gene's called APOE, and the variation is 4. So, APOE4 genes are a genetic risk of Alzheimer's. I have one instance, you can have up to two. There is now a report out that says if you have two instances of the APOE4 gene, one from each side of your family, you should be considered as if you have Alzheimer's from the day you're born. Not only that, I'm finding that as I'm being prescribed some new medicines and trying to decide what new medicine I should be taking, the fact that I have this APOE4 gene means I'm at risk for brain bleeds. But anyway, so where did that gene come from? Well, it looks like it came from my mother's side, my grandmother on my father's side, rather. My grandmother on my father's side, Clara Simon, married name, Nee Blonder, Clara Blonder. I've been in touch with the Blonder family that is connected to Clara. Just in fact, my great grandfather on my father's side, my grandmother's father, is named Samuel Blonder. I think I'm named after Samuel Blonder. Now, on my mother's side, and this is where we're really going, um, there is no record of the APOE4 gene, although her brother, my mother's brother, was named Samuel Alfman. Alfman. That's the part of the family I want to talk about today. So Samuel Altman was a brother. My mom grew up in Pensacola, was born in Pensacola, grew up in New Orleans. As I say in the introduction you just heard, she was a flamenco dancer. And we have some beautiful pictures. I even have her, I should have brought them up, original castanets that she used to dance with. Very slender woman, straight black hair, didn't look like a New Orleans woman. One day I met her best friend from New Orleans, and it was, you saw her name was Molly Cancher, my mom's best friend. As soon as I saw Molly, I knew, wow, that's a Southern lady. My mom, not so much. She was slender, dark hair, could have been from New York. So anyway, but prompts all this. So I grew up in El Paso, Texas, to Marcus and Frida Simon. Marcus Simon, whose grandmother was Claire Blonder, and whose the Blonder family has the APOE4 gene. That's what I inherited from them. My mother was born Frida Alfman, Alfman, Alfman. Her father was Harry Alfman. He was born in Pensacola, Florida. The year she was born, her father, Harry, was in trouble. He had been owner of a construction business. His business had put the roof on the courthouse building in Pensacola after the hurricane of 1906. Then he got charged with fraud on that. He was acquitted. He was a pretty smart man. In fact, I've just seen a couple of things. I've just recently actually begun to be able to find some new paper articles that have quotes from him. It give me a little bit more of a sense of maybe who he was. Because I think I may be more like Grandpa Harry Alfman than maybe anything else. Actually, maybe even my mom's sister, his daughter, Lena Alfman. I call her Aunt Lena, Lena. She was born in Pensacola, Florida. And as I mentioned, my mom was a speed typist and a self-taught bookkeeper. My Aunt Lena became admitted to the bar in 3 states and the federal government without ever going to law school. Interesting. I'm a lawyer. The only 2 lawyers in the Simon Alfman family are Sam Simon and my aunt, Lena Alfman. So maybe I have more in common with Aunt Lena than I do with anybody else in my family. So that's one of the reasons I'm sort of doing this. So Lena Alfman was admitted to the bar in California in 1920. She was the 16th woman to be admitted to the bar in Florida. But she had previously been admitted to the bar in Louisiana. You see, after Harry Alfman was, my grandfather got in trouble with the law. He sold his house and moved to New Orleans in the same year my mother was born, 1907, and lived there for a very long time until they moved to El Paso because his son, Sam Alfman, had tuberculosis, and El Paso is has over 5,000 feet or above sea level, and the air there was thinner. Aunt Lena was older by then, and she stayed back, and she was she was a stenographer. She did stenography in Louisiana for the courts. And back then, you didn't have to go to law school to be able to be admitted to the law. So her time being a stenographer and being in the courts of law, she learned enough to take the bar exam and pass it. Today, you have to go to law school, I think, in most states, but not back then. So she was able to pass the bar in Louisiana by her experience as being a stenographer in both local and in federal courts. So it was in 2022 that she went, I just found this out, just the last couple of days, found this out, that she went back to Florida because where she had also became a stenographer, but she was admitted to the federal bar there, and she was already a member of the Florida bar because she was appointed. You ready for this? She was appointed as an assistant U.S. district attorney in Pensacola, Florida. She eventually moved to Texas, El Paso, where I was born and where the rest of her family was. Worked in a law office as a secretary and was able to take the Texas bar. She was a member of the Texas bar, the Louisiana bar, the Florida bar, and the federal bar. It's interesting. There was an article in the newspaper once that talked about her being admitted to the bar, and her dad, Harry Hoffman, was quoted in the newspaper article. It says, New Orleans girl admitted to the bar. So see, this is when she was in New Orleans. And this is what her dad said about her. Of course, we're proud of her, Mr. Hoffman said Saturday. Lena is one of those who make it their business never to fail at anything. I know she'll make good. How's that for a pressure point and a compliment? I don't know what kind of compliment I really want to consider that to be. My dad said, I know he will be perfect. He always is. He never fails at anything. Whoa, baby. Aunt Lena, the only lawyer in the Simon Hoffman family history, admitted in 3 states and the federal, never went to law school, was just, and even when she was in El Paso, she was the legal secretary to the lawyer in the office, even though she was licensed as a lawyer. She had to be a tough cookie. And she defied norms. I like to think I do the same thing. She didn't do what was expected. She did the hard stuff. And there'll be one other thing I'll mention. I don't know if she smoked. She probably did. But I do believe that one of my traits, not a positive one, is I'm easily addicted. I don't think this is personality. I think this is a genetic trait. I was a chain smoker for many years. I always wondered whether that contributed to me getting Alzheimer's. I understand that in her that late in her life, Lena became an alcoholic. and her obsession. I also learned something else brand new today. Okay, I think you heard me in the introduction to this. My mom was a speed typist. Well, guess what? Lena Offman was a speed typist. Do you know what Lena Offman was? Well, she had received, first of all, who knew it existed? Uh, but she had received the award of, let me find it here, oh, she was a member of, quote, Accurate Order of Typists of New York. Say that again, Accurate Order of Speed Typist of New York, which is based on speed and accuracy of typing. Well, I've since learned that there is this order of speed typists, or was, and it was sponsored by Underwood Typewriter Company. And there was world champion. She obviously was part of the order, so she had to be great. My mother was great. And and by the way, I became a speed typist. So look, my Aunt Lena was the other lawyer. I also mentored I'm part of the bar of the Federal District Court, the District of Columbia, and the Supreme Court of the United States. I've been admitted to that. She was a member of the federal bar as well. Yeah, she and I both had this sort of addictive personality. We were both speed typists. I think I am like my Aunt Lena. So here's dementia, and Aunt Lena, in her late years, we don't know, was it dementia? She eventually needed to be in a memory unit. She may have been her drinking. I don't know. But she did have a cognitive decline in her late 80s. So there we are. A little bit about Dementia Man. And, we wonder sometimes, how do we come into these crazy parts of our life? How did I come from being a lawyer, working for Ralph Nader, an advocate, a troublemaker? Maybe Aunt Lena was a troublemaker. She certainly was in defying stereotypes of women of her era, and among the first women lawyers in Florida, Louisiana, Texas. So a little bit about Dementia Man and who I am and my background. And check us out. Bring us to your theater in your neighborhood. We are about finding how to live meaningful, productive lives, even with this disease, and making whatever trouble we need to make that happen.